A little Wales on a faraway continent, where the familiar and the exotic come together in a magical way. A rich blend of cultures, 150 years in the making.
O'r Cymru da ni'n dod i, ia. Maen nhw'n deud na gael un sosten i fan hyn.
How the Welsh came to be here and fought to preserve their language and culture is a truly inspiring story.
Mis padres eran galeses, sí. Sí. Me enseñaron mucho.
They mastered a desolate and hostile frontier, armed with remarkable faith and endurance. It is our very own Wild West epic. I've been following in the footsteps of those intrepid pioneers, fulfilling a lifelong dream to visit Patagonia. And to see for myself this special corner of South America, with its unexpected reminders of rural Wales. 150 years ago, a group of Welsh people set sail and crossed the Atlantic in search of a new life in South America. They gambled everything on this great venture. And this story of daring and courage and enterprise still has the power to fire the imagination. It is quite simply one of the greatest adventures in the history of Wales. The date is Friday the 28th of July, 1865, and the crossing, in rather primitive conditions, has taken 2 months. The pioneers, around 160 of them, are about to set foot for the first time on the shores of Argentina. But what they discover here is not what they'd been promised. They landed on a barren shore with no reliable supply of fresh water. A small advance party was waiting for them, but they'd made scant preparation for the arrival. So why venture to this back of beyond, which had resisted the efforts of all previous settlers? It was the idea of Michael D. Jones. This outlandish project began to form when Jones saw a problem that he felt was set to destroy the Wales he loved. Welsh coal mining was attracting thousands of English speakers to South Wales, and Jones feared that the native language and culture would quickly disappear. He believed that the only way that Welshness could be preserved was by establishing a new Wales in one of the most remote places on earth, where no other language or culture would ever dilute it. So when the Argentine government offered an isolated tract of land along the Chubut River, it seemed ideal. And Jones set about persuading able Welsh-speaking people to give up everything for a new life in the wilderness. For Michael D. Jones, the departure of the Mimosa in 1865, with 153 people on board, was the realization of a dream. This parched landscape of scrub and thorns couldn't be more different from the Wales they'd left behind. But armed with remarkable faith and endurance, they pushed on 40 miles to their promised land. The river valley, where they hoped to build a new life. It really is no exaggeration to say that this is the life source of this part of Patagonia. This is the River Chubut. The River Camoy, as the Welsh used to call it, flows for over 500 miles from the Andes in the west over to the Atlantic in the east. And the river has been an immense blessing, creating fertile land and sustaining life. But it's also been a bit of a curse at times, especially in the winter months, overflowing its banks and causing some pretty destructive flooding. Even though the settlers' first wooden homes were swept away, it seemed there was no alternative but to settle close to the river. The snows and rains that caused the flooding were falling far away in the Andes, and not on the parched and barren soil that formed the greater part of the land that they'd been given. It is difficult today to get a real sense of the extreme suffering and hardship of those first few years, and there are some unsettling reports. In 1871, it was suggested that the Welsh had been reduced to eating grass in order to survive. Emergency supplies were sent by the Argentine government. The Royal Navy brought in British help. No wonder that one of the settlers loudly proclaimed, "God save John Bull." There was mutiny in the air, and in 1867, most of the settlers were ready to abandon the venture. But they were persuaded to give the colony one last chance. And then came one vital innovation that changed everything. And without it, the modern state of Chubut in Argentina might simply not exist. In a dazzling feat of engineering, those early pioneers dug a network of irrigation canals across the valley and turned the desert green. The Welsh have certainly left their mark on Patagonia and made an enormous contribution. But there is no contribution greater than this one, bringing a supply of water over many miles into the middle of this barren land and transforming it into a fertile plain. And today's farmers are still benefiting from that Welsh achievement. Near his small farm in the Chubut Valley, Benito Jones showed me how much this breakthrough means. He still speaks the language that his forefathers came here to protect, and though the accent is different, it is still reassuringly familiar. Mae'n rhyfedd gweld gymaint o ddŵr ma, Benito. Ni wedi disgwyl gweld falle nentydd bach cul, ond mae yna lot o ddŵr ac mae'n llifo'n gryf.
Ydy, mae'r dŵr yn dod o bell. Mae'r ffosydd yn cymryd y dŵr o'r afon yn lle da ni'n galw ceg y ffos. Mae hwnna'n rhyw 60 o kilometros. Mae'n rhyfeddol a gweud y gwir. Y pellter sy'n yn haro i'r, os chi'n sôn am ddegau o gilometrau, mae'r gwaith ath mewn i hwn yn anferthol. Wel ydy, maen nhw wedi gweithio yn galed iawn i clodio a crafu tiroedd a... Ac heb y dŵr yma, be bydde yma heb y dŵr yma? Wel, dim ond tiroedd heb tefiant na... Dim ond tiroedd fel da chi'n weld ar y paes. Bod y dŵr ydy'r peth pwysig. A heb y dŵr, sa'r wladfa di wedi gallu aros yma. Wel, mae'n neud i chi sylweddoli pa mor hanfodol bwysig oedd hwn. It's only from space that you can really grasp what was achieved here. A vast green strip surrounded by semi-desert. He was the pathfinder for a band of explorers, most of them Welshmen, on a mission to open up the far west of Patagonia. The native people had long spoken of rich, fertile lands surrounded by snow-capped peaks. With no room to expand in the Chubut Valley, more farmland was needed to attract new immigrants from Wales. The adventurers were known as the rifleros, or riflemen of Chubut, and every year their descendants reenact their arrival.
And what we have today is a taste, a hint of the pioneering spirit of 1885. These are today's rifleros. They're on their way to the top of the mountain to raise a banner to celebrate the discovery of this remarkable place. Those pioneers had crossed the plains for hundreds of miles and they got their first glimpse of this paradise, this fertile land, their new home, Cwm Hyfryd, Splendid Valley.
Da ni fyny fan hyn mwyn cofio am y rhai ddoth yma gynta yn 1885 a gweld o fyny fan hyn o'r garreg yma, gweld y dyffryn sydd ar tu gefn i ni. O, dyma chi ddyffryn hyfryd. A Cwm Hyfryd oedd ei enw o i'r rhan fwyaf o'r Cymru ddad i fyw yma wedi ar ôl hynny.
The Rifleros are very proud of their pedigree and their direct links to the founding fathers. Oscar, diolch yn fawr. Le daeth y teulu?
Teulu fi wedi dod, nain fi wedi dod i Port Madryn ar y Mimosa yn 865.
O 1865 ar y Mimosa?
Ar y Mimosa.
A
Nain fi, mam o dad fi.
A yn lle roedd nain yng Nghymru?
Yn Cymru, Llwyd Coed, Aberdar.
Llwyd Coed Aberdar. A pryd daeth y teulu yma i Gwm Hyfryd?
A Cwm Hyfryd wedi dod yn 891.
1891.
Teulu Kentan dod fan hyn.
1891.
Ia,
Mae'n Gwm Hyfryd iawn.
Cwm Hyfryd.
At last, here was the paradise that the Welsh had dreamed of. The rich soils of the valley floor were ideal to grow crops, and there was plenty of pasture on the surrounding slopes to raise livestock. And of course, cowboy culture came with the territory. This is Alejandro Jones, and he farms in the traditional way on land pioneered by his great-grandfather. He combines pride in his Welsh heritage with a love for the rugged Argentine way of life in the great outdoors. Yr hyn sydd ddiddorol yw bod ti'n cyfuno dau draddodiad a dweud y gwir, traddodiad yr Ariannin a thraddodiad Cymreig.
Wel ydw, mae'r teulu ochr dad, y teulu sy'n bia'r ffarm yma, o Lewi Jones yn dod o Llanrwst, ac oedd o wedi prynu'r ffarm yma, a mae o wedi dod yn gawtio fel oedd y rhan mwyaf ar y Cymro wedi wneud. Ac oedd dau taid fi, un bob ochr, taid Madryn a taid Wyl, oedden nhw'n ddau yn gawtios, ond o'n gawtios go iawn. Pan dwi'n meddwl am gawtio, pan dwi'n meddwl am ddysgu ci, pan dwi'n meddwl am dofi ceffil, am gweithio fo'r gwartheg, dwi'n edrych arnyn nhw.
It is remarkable how the Welsh adapted to life on this wild frontier. And the clearest symbol of that